Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today I am sitting with Jason, who is the owner of Dawson Entertainment, and his wife, Nikki, who is also in the industry, who does hair and makeup. What's interesting about these two is that they are a married couple in the industry, but do two totally different things. Nikki starts your wedding day with hair and makeup, and Jason ends your day with the entertainment. My conversation today with Jason is we're going to be talking all about the DJ element of your wedding day, the entertainment portion. We're going to really break down song choices. What's the in song? What's on the do not playlist songs? We're actually going to start giving you a lot of little tips and tricks about the visuals of the wedding day in regards to your DJ setup. Honestly, if you are looking for a DJ and in your wedding planning process right now, this is definitely the podcast episode for you, because just my conversation with Jason in general, you are going to walk away with so many tips and tricks that you haven't even thought about when it comes to your wedding DJ. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Nikki and Jason Dawson. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. Hello, Jason. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm excited to have you and your wife on. So who's sitting to the right of you?
My wife, Nikki Dawson. She's over here.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
I'm super excited.
So for our listeners, they're probably wondering, who is Jason and who is Nikki?
Right. Well, I am, again, Jason Dawson. I own Dawson Entertainment. We do DJing mostly as kind of our main focus. We also do photo booth, lighting, some stuff along those lines as well. But obviously the music is the big focus. And then, my wife over here.
My name is Nikki Dawson, and I specialize in bridal hair and makeup all over New England. I am located in Mystic, Connecticut. And I'm also, too, a licensed esthetician. So I do facials and give my brides great tips about how to get ready for their weddings.
I love it. And so what we'll do for our listeners is we're actually going to have Jason and Nikki talk with us on 2 episodes. Today, we're really going to focus on Jason's business, which is the DJ side. And then in 2 weeks, you are going to hear from Nikki, who's going to talk all about the beauty side, right? But I figured spouses can always weigh in on each other's business.
Mm-hmm.
So out of curiosity, did you guys meet in the industry?
So we met in the nightlife industry. So outside of weddings, I've always been involved in nightlife, DJing clubs and bars and all those kinds of fun events as well. And, we met at a club called Shrine at Foxwoods in Connecticut. She was serving me my drinks as a bottle server, and I was playing the tunes, and, the rest is history.
The rest is history. Here we are. Well, that actually gets into my first question. So tell us who you are, who you serve, and what you do.
Sure. So, my DJ name is DJ JD, which are my initials, as you may have guessed from the intro. Funnily enough, it took many years to come up with that name.
Fair.
But, I DJ these days mostly weddings, but I still like to DJ nightlife events, mostly at a club called Shrine at Foxwoods, but also clubs in Boston as well. I've been doing that, for many, many years, since the mid-2000s. So have really seen a lot of different eras of music come and go in that nightlife scene, and really honed the mixing skills and kind of those crowd pleasers and things like that in that environment. And I think that's really translated well to the wedding business, because it really helps me just kind of mix in a different way than most wedding DJs you would probably see, from hearing from other people's experiences, DJs playing a song from the very beginning to the fade out at the end. That's not what we do. So,
right, and it's only fitting that you guys met at the Shrine, because I knew that that's where you started your career. I've known you for many, many years, and then for those who follow Jason, they know he still goes there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, we have a wedding coming up where we're working together, and I want to say that they found you they knew of you from playing at the Shrine.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's always the best. The couples that come from knowing that background are always like the most fun, because they're really wanting to turn up and really party, and that's obviously what we're here for.
That's what you're here for, right? And you know what? Being a photographer, right, on the side of being at the entertainment, at the party, I do see and interact with a lot of different musicians and bands and DJs. So I hear a lot of different styles, and there's definitely. It is. People just think like, oh, okay, I need to get entertainment for my reception, but different people bring different vibes. Ultimately, it really is. Yes, your guests are all different, but I've noticed like when there is different DJs, there's a different vibe, and it's consecutively that way. So obviously different DJs bring their own vibe to the party, and I don't think that people realize that. So having someone like yourself who comes from a club background can understand the mixing component, that in itself is a different vibe.
Yeah, and there's so many ways that a DJ can bring, their own perspective to a party. Obviously, a party has to have music. So, right. Some people might just want to put on a Spotify playlist, and you know what? That's going to give you one vibe for sure. But you're not going to have that honed selection of these songs work the best in this moment, watching how people are reacting and tailoring your song choice to how those people are reacting. That's where a DJ comes in. And even a DJ who doesn't necessarily mix is going to be able to add that next level to that by the song selection part. But then a DJ who is going to mix and really just make sure the pacing of the songs is happening at a fun, interesting pace, make sure the transitions are happening musically and sound good, that just elevates it to this like next level that you can't get to otherwise. And there's also DJs that are going to be out there like really being the host and like, getting out from behind the DJ booth and getting on the mic and really leading your party in that way as like an MC more than just a DJ. And that's a whole different thing as well. That's not really what I do personally. I definitely focus on the music, but there are all these different levels of DJ entertainment that you can come across, and figuring out which one suits you the best is definitely maybe not the easiest thing, but knowing that there are these different levels, I think, is a good starting point.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why we're here talking, because a lot of people might not even be thinking about this, but you're right. It doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It's just understanding that there's a difference, and that's what I mean by the vibe. There's a different DJs that consistently every time I see them, there's a vibe, right? And yeah, the guests are different and the venue's different, but it's the same vibe from that same DJ. So it's just a matter of understanding that there's differences and then just figuring out what's right for you, which I think we should help people understand how to figure those differences out, right? I'll tell you one thing. For me, understanding those differences is a little bit easier, and I think probably for you, Nicole, too, because you're married to a DJ. My husband in his heyday was a DJ down in the clubs of Miami, and he did a lot of like house background, martini bar music, but fast forward 20-something years, it's in my basement. A whole setup. Sometimes he has like the latest and greatest, and literally I'll put the kids to bed and I'll go to bed and I'll hear him down in the basement and doing his mixing, but he's mixed. Yes, exactly. but he is a background of a club DJ. He really does do mixing, and for me, not knowing a damn thing like music and everything, I can actually now start to see the difference. Yeah,
you can just feel it. Like some of these things you can't necessarily pinpoint. What is it that they're doing in this moment that is making me feel this way? But it's giving you a feeling. And, starting to identify that is a starting point,
So let's talk about that for the listeners, like who is thinking about having a DJ. We talked about there's all these different scenarios and vibes that people can bring, how can someone even start to begin to look like so they go online and they see names, right? So how does someone even begin to be like, okay, what is their style and is it right for me?
That's a really, really
deep question.
Deep question, yeah. And it's not always easy to answer. I think if you can find DJs that have live material available to listen to, either in audio form or video form, I think that's probably the first and best way to identify if that DJ is going to suit your style. A few things you do have to consider about DJs and weddings, like when you see a DJ at one person's wedding, they might be playing a little bit different than they would play at a different wedding because that particular couple has given them, certain criteria of songs to play and not to play and things like that. So, I think sometimes DJs get a bad rap for sticking to the playlist that the couple they're playing for has kind of dictated. So people might see them and be like, hey, that's not my style, so I hate that DJ. Understandable. But that DJ might have the ability to be very versatile and be able to switch things up to your style. So I think it's good for DJs to have a broad kind of sense of what their styles are that they can accommodate on YouTube, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, wherever they can post mixes and material for people to listen to. That gives couples the ability to really hear what these DJs are like live, because it's hard to – you can't really sneak into a wedding and hear these performers playing. So having that material online is the best way.
Right. I mean, unless you want to be a wedding crasher.
Right.
Have you ever seen any of those?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I have not yet. Of all the years, I haven't.
It actually happened just earlier this year. The smallest wedding I may have ever DJ'd. It was a 20-person wedding at the Ocean House in Watch Hill, Rhode Island, right next to Taylor Swift's house. And it was a 20-person wedding, literally like 20 people, family, and maybe 4 or 5 friends. And it's just in this room that's kind of open back patio. This other couple is walking up the path, and they start peeking in, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna walk in." And this couple walks in, and they start dancing with everybody, and the bride and groom start dancing with them too, and they were like taking pictures with each other and everything. It was great. Like, so, in the right environment, that could be a really fun experience. They didn't overstay their welcome. They stayed for like 5 minutes, bounced, and it was all good.
Well, extra party or two. Fair. All right. Well, weigh in on this for me a little bit. Let's talk about behind the scenes, right? Talk to me about vendors and a little bit about, when we were talking about what we should talk about on the show, you mentioned to me, I really want to cover vendors helping the DJ keep their setup clean. I found that interesting because visually, being in the visual business, and, same thing with your wife, Nikki, you're in the visual business, I do notice visually things. And I will notice a good amount of you all try to keep your system clean. And I appreciate that. As a photographer, I really appreciate that because sometimes your setups are my pictures, right? And not just the pictures, looks-wise. I mean, people put all this time and money into their venue. The smallest of details matter. So talk to me about what vendors can do to help you.
First off, I think DJs in the last 5 years especially have really tried to elevate the look that they're bringing to events. We want to make sure that we're blending in, that we're matching the style and decor. We want to be proud of our setup. We don't want to have that, 80s look anymore. We want people to look at us with a higher level of esteem, I suppose. So, DJs are spending lots of money on all-white setups so they can just blend into this all-white venue. Coming up with the different DJ booth designs for different venues. Like we have a wine barrel DJ booth that we bring out to wineries that we DJ at and things like that. And, and we're also getting a lot of questions from couples like, what does your setup look like? Like that is often a question on a lot of these calls.
And not to interrupt you, but you said something pretty quickly because you probably took it for granted. But, for the listeners, people may not realize that if you're getting married at a vineyard, you can have a completely different setup than if you're getting married somewhere, like you said, an all-white ballroom or a country club or, from here I think about like the Belmere's on Goat Island. So maybe asking your DJ, like, what is the setup and what other options you have to to fit your decor because you are the center focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of a room a lot of times.
Yeah,
right?
we're right there, right in the middle. We're either in the background of some of your dance shots, like your first dance, your parent dances, things like that. Like we're probably in the background of a lot of those shots, and we do want to look better. That is the DJ's goal. So, what is frustrating is, when, no offense, photo, video, come and they stick their black flash stand or light stand right in front of our white speaker. Like this all beautiful white setup, everything's taped down nicely on the floor. We've done our best to just blend in and almost be invisible as much as possible, and this black stand is right there. Or the one that always gets me is the black stand, whatever, but then there's the orange extension cord that goes diagonally across the ground next to our 90-degree taped down wires. I just think us DJs generally are trying to elevate what we're bringing visually. I don't see why other vendors shouldn't be elevating as well.
Right, and as a photographer, and people are like, oh, I didn't even think about this, right? Like they probably even thought about like their DJ being in their pictures, being in the center of their ballroom. I mean, again, decor is a big price tag on weddings, and I know it's very important because that's the number one thing I get asked to photograph. Make sure you get all my details, right? But you're right. I mean, you have to think about that. And as a photographer, sometimes the reason why people put their light stands next to your speakers is because it's another element that's tall anyway. So they're like, okay, I want to put my flash, which is tall, or videographer, my light that's tall, because there's already something tall, so they're trying to blend in. But you know what? You're right. If you have a black flash with a white speaker, it's like note to self, like that. It's counterproductive for what you were trying to do, right?
Yeah, and I totally understand, like, the light has to be coming from a certain place to bounce off the ceiling a certain way to get the I completely can appreciate all of that. But, I carry black stands and white stands. So if I get to the venue and it's a white venue, I'm going to use the white ones that day and not the black ones. I have white speakers and black speakers. So if it's a white venue, I'm going to bring the white speakers. If it's a darker venue, I'm probably going to bring the black speakers. There's ways to get around it and to accommodate. I personally actually like more like the silver looking stands, actually kind of like this stand that's holding this mic over here, because they can reflect the environment around them. So if it's a dark room, it's going to be reflecting darker colors. If it's white, it's going to be reflecting white. It blends in my perspective a little more. Not everybody likes that. From talking to other people, not everybody likes that, but I think that's a good middle ground, something that can kind of blend in. My ideal setup would be invisible. Right. So I'm trying to make everything just completely blend in as much as possible.
Well, I also, this is why we're having this conversation, because we're bringing up a lot of points that, people are thinking music, and now all of a sudden we went off on all different areas. But hey, listen, like you said, you like the silver stands. Someone else might like the black stands. Okay, but this is the conversation you have to have, right? Because you have it available. So if they want you to bring the black stand, so the silver stand do. But it's funny you brought that up because, it's just about, are you dealing with a true professional? It's there's a lot of things in the details. So for me, right, my stands are black. They don't make white stands, right? But I do take notice. It's because it's all about the visuals. If a DJ has white speakers, I am not putting my black stand there. Now, if they have black speakers, I'm putting my black speaker stand there. It blends right in, right? Yeah. So I have to find, there's other areas that I can put my flash. Like you said, light has to come from a certain direction, but there's not just one option, right? So it's funny you brought that up. I do take note of that. Another thing I do is I try to put my bags behind the DJ's booth because it hides it. Same reason why you're trying to be invisible, I am. But that's my one bag. I have seen videographers, obviously not other photographers because I'm the photographer for the wedding, but I've seen videographers like their shit is sprawled out everywhere. I'm like, get it together, because it's not just the DJ. It's also like wait staff. They strategically place their wait tables in certain areas. Like everybody's trying to blend. And then you always have those people, right, that they don't get it.
Not at all. And I mean, another aspect of that, like we are bringing these like scrim facades that can unfold and like cover
the
an
wires
area,
and everything,
like cover a road case or cover bags, things like that, so that it looks like it's blending in. Like, why would, if you have 5 cases you're bringing, why would you not bring something to make that area look a little nicer.
And like I said, like Dan and I, we travel one bag, so we could stick it behind the DJ booth. But like if, like you said, it's mostly like other videographers, because I think videographers have more gear. If you have 5 bags, you're right. Like, why not bring something I didn't even think about that. For us, I don't need it. I just hide it behind your thing.
Yeah. One bag is easy, but sometimes they're just like taking up the whole entire wall. It's like, whoa, what is happening here?
But you know what, though? That's a question that people can be asking, because a lot of times people ask me, like, what do you wear? But you know what? How about, like, where are you putting your stuff? It's another question.
And some venues are very difficult to work in that way as well, because they just don't have the availability, don't give you the availability, if I could speak, of a place to put this stuff, you know?
I mean, I even have a photo booth. I know you mentioned you have one, but like I have silver duct tape, white duct tape, black duct tape, brown duct tape. Why? Because when I put that cord on the floor, I want it to, and I blend.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
All right. So now let's get back into a little bit now the music end, right? We went off on that tangent, right? So talk to me a little bit about music. Let's go with the typical thing I'm sure you get all the time. Like, I don't want cheesy music. Well, what's cheesy?
That's my question. I would love to know. You know, the thing is, everybody has their own definition of what's cheesy. And that's what I've learned over DJing hundreds of weddings, is on Friday, they might think the YMCA is cheesy, which I would agree. Saturday, the YMCA is a must play. But they also don't want cheesy music. So what's cheesy now? I don't know. That comes from, you know, you have to know what questions to ask that couple. We have a whole questionnaire, you know, asking questions about their musical preferences. But there's definitely some standard cheesy songs. Like a lot of people, all the line dance type songs are generally thought of as cheesy, which surprises some people quite a bit, because they would not imagine going to a wedding or an event without doing a line dance.
And also, too, what's funny is line dance songs are really awesome for photographers, because everybody's in a line dancing, and I could get everybody captured, right?
For us DJs, too, for capturing that content for our social media. Everybody's out there doing a move, like putting their hands up. It's like, great, you know.
I was going to say, with him having his little timeline of music and everything, he and I have a lot of couples, and the brides will always say, oh, his forms, they're so long. I said, well, would you like to have it super short and him not know, or him be super detailed? And they're like, no, it's awesome, because they're just not used to having vendors that are super detailed like that for everything.
And I'm glad you brought that point up, because it's so important. If your vendor has forms, please fill them out. We don't have them just to give you homework. It does help us with our job, and if you don't do it, it really does not set us up for full success.
100%. I just met with a couple last night. We're sitting there. It's their final call. Their wedding is in 4 weeks, and pretty much none of the form was filled out on our phone call. Like, this is supposed to be our call to talk about the details, like really get into the nitty-gritty about what you want, and like 70% of it wasn't filled out. And we ended up talking through a lot of it, kind of filled it out on the fly a bit, but we could have gotten a lot deeper and gotten a lot more info if it had been filled out.
Absolutely. And I think what I would love to do is, after our break, we should talk a little bit about timelines and those detail calls. But before we do that, just one thing about cheesy music,
yes.
Right? Okay, you're gonna cringe. Both of you guys are gonna cringe when I say this, all right? But like, can we bring the chicken dance back?
That is a no. That one is a no.
I just think, listen, I am waiting for the day that someone actually plays the chicken dance at their wedding, because I think that would be so fun. So funny.
I'm sure the pictures would be incredible.
Fair.
But that is the one song that I don't even have that on my form. I have a little section on my form that says, do you want any of these like line dance kind of songs? Because we know people have strong feelings about them. And it lists like the Macarena, YMCA, Cha-Cha Slide, Cupid Shuffle, that kind of stuff. What is not on there? The chicken dance. Why is that not on there? Because it's not even an option.
Right.
It's just not.
Fair. Fine, Jason.
But they always add it. It's probably the number one added song to the section below that, which is the Do Not playlist.
Okay.
Always on there.
I know we said we were going to take a break, but before we do that, let's talk about the Do Not playlist. Talk to me about that. What do you find is on that Do Not playlist a lot, right? What do you agree with? What do you not agree with?
So the things that are on there the most these days, I'm hardcore rap, which is probably not going to happen unless they requested it anyway. Heavy metal are all like kind of standards. But Bruno Mars, huge on the Do Not Play list.
Really?
Justin Timberlake, big on the Do Not Play list.
Why?
Pharrell, big on the Do Not Play list. Specifically Happy, specifically Can't Stop the Feeling, specifically Uptown Funk. All have been, previously pretty big hits in certain ways, but people see them as super cheesy because they've gone to 20 weddings in the last 2 years and they've heard every single one. And they're like, I can't anymore.
Yeah,
I just can't. It's Bruno, I think, is a great musician, puts out great dance music, great for weddings. But when you do play Uptown Funk, 50 times in a year, 70 times in a year, 100 times in a year, it's like, maybe we can take a little break from this for a bit. It'll come back.
Right.
Everything
fair.
comes in waves, but
Fair.
it needs maybe a little break.
What about songs that people say that they don't want you to play, but you're actually like, ooh, this is successful. Like, I've seen this successful on the dance floor. I mean, obviously you have to read the crowd. I know that. But just a general.
And I guess a classic cheesy song is Celebration by Kool and the Gang. Definitely has been seen as cheesy since my younger days. But that's another one where Friday night it's on the do not play list, Saturday night it's a must play. And I think a lot of these cheesy quote-unquote songs can be played in a way that doesn't come across as cheesy. If you have the kind of DJ who is playing the song from the very beginning to the very end and you're listening to 4 minutes of Celebration, yeah, that's a no. For sure.
Right,
No one
right.
wants that. Not anybody wants that. But if you have a DJ who's playing just the first verse and chorus of Celebration so that the older folks are like, oh, I love this song, because they do, and the younger folks aren't tired of it yet because you only played a minute and 15 seconds of it before you moved on to the next song, that can work.
Right.
And not come across as cheesy. Like, it's all about the pacing of how these songs are changing in the dance set.
And it's also the mixing. I mean, I'll hear my husband mixing like Belle de DeVoe with Fleetwood Mac all of a sudden. I'm like, wait a minute, but I love it. Like, it's about understanding the mixing and I'll hear a verse all of a sudden and the beat, and then all of a sudden now we're on Stevie Nicks. I'm like, okay, well, thanks, because I love Stevie Nicks. But like you said, if they hear 1 or 2 lines on it, you get them up, you get them excited, and then now all of a sudden you're going into something else.
And it's about the whole journey of the entire dance set. It's like, just focusing on these individual little songs sometimes can be a little too much when it's really just part of telling this longer story. You're playing, 70, 80 songs in this dance set. Are you really going to nitpick on this minute that happened that some of your guests really enjoyed, even though you might not have preferred that minute maybe? But that minute is very short. As you'll know at the end of your wedding, it all flies by very quickly.
Right.
So
Well, what are some of the new classic songs that you're hearing? Like the songs that, because we talked about the songs that used to be the classics, right? And now people don't want to hear it, like the Bruno Mars and whatnot. And like you said, it comes in waves. What are you seeing a lot of right now that people are putting on that form? That you think that in about a year from now, people are going to be like, do not play this.
And the bigger songs this year, Murder on the Dance Floor, which is not a new song. It's a 10-year-old song, at least in itself, but came back because of Saltburn. That's been really big this year, but probably will get played out. What are some others? I Want to Dance with Somebody, I think, is actually kind of right now on maybe the downturn. That's been a big song for a long time, but definitely see that on the Do Not playlist sometimes. But newer songs. Some other songs that I would say a lot of the ABBA stuff is really big right now and probably will end up going out in the not-too-distant future. I mean, I remember Dancing Queen specifically for my entire DJ career up until recently was, you don't touch this song. It's unplayable. You don't do it. It's like ultimate cheese, like the YMCA. And then maybe 4 years ago, maybe right before COVID, it came back with a vengeance because maybe TikTok or something, and it's on the must playlist of almost every single wedding. And then about a year and a half ago, it started transitioning into Gimme Gimme from Dancing Queen, because I think people are starting to get tired of Dancing Queen. Gimme Gimme is kind of that second hit from them that's really big, and definitely been playing that a ton. They both work really well. Surprisingly, it's kind of one of, like us as DJs. It's been talked about a lot in the community of DJs that like we have to always be changing our perspective on things and really letting the clients lead us a bit on some of these, because we do end up having to play songs that we originally would never have touched because they were just like super cheesy at one point. But tastes change, and we have to change with it.
And then you have to change with it. All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, let's talk a little bit about taking requests, speeches, some tips you have for people about speeches. I know, Nikki, you're going to weigh in on that one because we talked earlier about this. And then let's get into some ceremony, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good.
I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. So, Jason, before the break, we were talking about songs and setups and just more logistical stuff of DJing, right? Let's now get into some practical stuff. So, timelines. Talk to me.
So, I guess my main thought on timelines, and I think why we kind of brought this up, is that, sometimes people want their wedding to be so unique and different, which I completely understand. There's lots of ways to make your wedding different and unique. I think design is a big way to do that. But there's a reason that weddings typically flow in a certain way from this event to that event to that event. There's a reason why, the first dance happens right after the grand entrance and then toasts. And there's a reason why I personally like to do the cake and parent dances at the end of dinner to lead into dancing. It's because the overall flow of the event works very well that way, because us as like the host or leader of the event is kind of what a DJ is doing. They're kind of just helping the event move along as far as the timeline goes. Directing your guests' attention in the right place at the right time is huge. You want to get people ready to dance after dinner. Getting people up after they've been sitting for an hour and are tired now that I know I always want a nap after dinner, right? Why would they not want a nap? They do. So getting their attention directed back to the dance floor so they know, like, this is coming, I should be ready. It's not a surprise that, we just have been sitting here for 15 minutes awkwardly while the couple is still saying hi to the last 5 tables that took them 25 minutes, even though the last person already ate, and we can't really dance until they're done doing that.
Yes. Like the overschedule. Yeah.
Yeah. Overscheduling. And another aspect of that is you don't want to give your guests too much to do. That's something I always advise against and sometimes see. There's a couple enemies to the DJ. The fire pit, the cigar bar. Probably the 2 biggest enemies.
And just a nice, beautiful day.
Oh, man.
Just a nice, beautiful day.
There's one venue I play at consistently, and you always know the beginning of the dance set is going to be great, but probably 25 minutes in, people are going to go start exploring the grounds. If it's a nice day, they're going to go out there. They're going to explore for probably 45 minutes because it's beautiful grounds. You go by the water. You do all this. And then they're going to come back, and the end of the dance set's going to be amazing. But there's going to be this little lull in the middle, and there's nothing I can do as a DJ because you picked a beautiful venue. I mean, so if you give your guests too many things to do, if you give them the cigar bar, do you think there's going to be any male on the dance floor at all? No. They're going to be outside of the cigar bar for the entire duration of the wedding. You gave them permission to not dance by giving them the cigar bar. Same with a fire. People are going to be sitting out there hanging out, talking, which is great. There's no problem with that. But if your intention is to have people dance and enjoy themselves on the dance floor, don't give them the permission to do this other thing. Just don't give it.
It's funny that you say that, because another little great nugget for the people listening, You think you want all this lovely stuff to do, but I think they realize that sometimes they're taken away from just the essence of just a celebration. And celebration is music and dancing and letting loose. But like you said, I mean, that's why a lot of times, so for me, for my couples who want the photo booth, I say keep it in the reception hall, in the tent, in the hall, not outside, because now you're giving them permission to leave. And I want them in. It's okay to give them something to do to break up dancing. They need a break, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want them to exit. Right?
Exactly. And we have the photo booth as well. And I was really worried about getting into the photo booth originally because I was like, man, this is going to take away from the party, from dancing. But you're right. If you keep the photo booth in the same room, by the bar, maybe in the flow of the bar to the bathroom, photo booth, like keep those things together because people are going to go refresh their drink. That gives them a moment to do all that. And the photo booth is a fun thing. It's a fun keepsake. It's fun. Take those photos home with you. You have all this blackmail digital photo after. It's like crazy. So it's super fun. And I think the nice thing that I've realized after having the photo booth for many years now is that it doesn't take away from the party when it's done right.
No. When it's done right. It only enhances it. And like you said, everybody does need a break. Because like you said, a lot of DJs that I talk to, they always tell me there's a sweet spot for music. Okay? So let me see if I'm right. Okay? I'm not a DJ. Let me see if I'm right. 2 hours is the max. They don't want less than that because then they don't feel like they have enough time. But if they go over, they lose people.
Yeah, I would say 2 hours.
1.5 to 2 hours is what I'm told.
2 hours is kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.5. If you start going beyond that, it can sometimes be hard to hold people's attention because it's already been a long day.
Right.
And a lot of people in a wedding environment, a nightclub is a little bit different. Younger folks are used to being up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. A lot of people at a wedding have been out of that part of our element for a while. So, they have newborn kids. They're used to going to bed early now. And your tolerance for alcohol, those kind of things can be a little less. People overdrink by, a lot of those times when they're like, can we extend like another half hour? You're like, do you see? Have you looked around? Did you hear how many glasses have broken in the last half hour? I don't think that you really want to do that.
Right. So like 2 hours on the dance floor, you're always going to have someone out there for 2 hours, but most people are going to need a break. So it's okay to have some things, but like you said, don't over schedule them. And what I mean by that too is also like don't have a gazillion toast. Don't have all these different things. Like people just want to dance. And also too, like don't have your cigar bar outside. Lounge furniture. People pay a hefty price for lounge furniture, but what they don't realize, you take that outside. Like that people are sitting.
People are sitting there talking, which is great. Like when you're in, I always tell my couples too, the thing that holds up the timeline the most is at the end of dinner, you're going around to the tables and saying hi to everybody, right? Which is something you feel pretty obligated to do. These people are giving you gifts. They're people you love. That's why you invited them. They're people you want to see and talk to. Obviously, that's why you invited them. There's an amazing experience that you're having today with all the people that you love the most around you in one room. It's incredible. But talking to those people at the end of dinner is what holds things up the most. And those conversations are great. They're fun. And I always tell couples, like, tell those people to come and see you on the dance floor. Have those conversations on the dance floor later, especially with your younger guests. Yes, you're going to have to go see the aunts and uncles and things like that at the table. Fine, do that. But those kind of conversations are what are going to be happening out on that lounge furniture outside. And if you're giving them the opportunity to do that, they're going to take it because those are interesting conversations. They're fun. It's fun hearing all these stories. But, don't necessarily give them that opportunity. Put that lounge furniture on the corner of the dance floor rather than outside.
Right. Give them a moment to take a breather. Right? Yeah. If it's not, because 2 hours of dancing is a lot, but just a breather and then get them back up on that floor. Yep. So we talked a little quickly about speeches. We kind of, just mentioned like not giving them too much to do, but also speeches, too much going on, get them on the dance floor. You have to have an opinion. I know I do. So if I do, and I'm just the photographer, right? Yeah. Not running the entertainment end, give it to me.
I've seen some crazy speeches. Oh man, where to even start? A lot of times it's the fathers that can be kind of the worst offenders. I would say, they have a lot of skin in the game, obviously, and they have a lot of story they'd like to tell. You want to make sure that it is very clear to your toasters the amount of time you intend them to take. Does that mean that everybody is going to stick to that? No. But if you only want them to take 5 minutes maximum, you better tell them 2 minutes because they'll take 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. If you tell them 5 minutes, they're going to take 10 minutes. So tell them half the time you expect them to take, and hopefully they'll end up where you want them to be.
Right.
And as far as a more technical side of things, I always give the toasters a microphone on a stand, a wireless microphone on a stand, because I know especially videographers appreciate having that constant distance of the microphone to the person speaking. The people that take the microphone off the stand, there's many reasons why that's a bad idea. First and foremost, when you take the microphone off the stand, then you're holding it down by your belly. And you know what? Your belly is not speaking. I mean, and if it is, maybe it's because you haven't eaten yet, and that's that's when toasts are happening. Right. But, the microphone ideally is about an inch or two away from your mouth. That's the ideal distance, 1 to 2 inches from your mouth, which people are not used to.
No, that's what we're doing right now.
It is. It can be very jarring. You get people up there all the time. They're like a little timid approaching the mic. Like they look like a bird, like approaching its prey.
It's intimidating to have this thing right here in front of you, right?
and then they say their first word, and they're like, "Whoa, that was loud." It's supposed to be loud. It's okay. That's how people hear you. I know you're not used to it, and I try and preface this with a lot of people ahead of time, so they're not quite as surprised. I think that's part of what a DJ should do is try and prepare people for what's coming, because we should know that they're probably not used to this. So try not to take the microphone off the stand, because then we're not going to hear you. If the microphone is down by your belly, we're not going to hear it. And then if you take the microphone off the stand, then they're walking around. They're not staying in one spot. And videographers especially despise that, because they want you to be in that shot as well.
Yep.
They have their cameras set up a certain place so that the toaster is on the right side of the screen and the couple is on the left side of the screen. And if that toaster grabs a microphone and starts walking around, now they have to live in the moment follow that person.
And it messes up their lighting too.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Yep. So keep that microphone where we put it.
And again, I think listening to you talk and, just knowing the industry, and I hope the listeners are catching on to this. I hope they're seeing the difference of what elevates you as a true professional, because a lot of times you talk and you just take it for granted what you're saying, but you just said, a true DJ needs to educate and prep their customers or clients that way, or even like tell their couples to let their guests who are speaking know that you are going to be having a microphone on a stand. It's just all these little things that just make people more comfortable today, and that's what makes you a true professional and elevate you. I mean, another little nugget I want to throw in there is there's something to be said about reading a speech off of a piece of paper than a phone. Technology dates imagery.
Oh, yeah.
So, we talked about having the stand for A, sound purposes, B, comfortability for the person speaking, but also visualize for the videographer. Even us photographers, we don't like people moving around, because we might line up our shot where we don't have the DJ speakers in the picture. We don't want your speakers in our picture, right? Or we might want like someone in the background of the speaker, because we want to get their reaction in a bokeh effect in the background. Anyway, that's all like, technical stuff on my end. But my point is cell phones. Right? It's a dated technology. So just read off of a piece of paper.
Yeah, and that microphone stand is going to allow their hands to be free to hold these things. I completely agree. Like, you look back at like a iPhone 2, someone holding their like the original iPhone. It's like, wow.
And also, too, like these iPhones that we have right now, they're not going to be around in like 10 years from now.
No.
There's going to be something else. Maybe they'll have like halogens and you can have your invisible DJ stand. It's just there.
You're like an invisible teleprompter.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about your request. All right. Like how do you feel about taking requests the night of?
So it's my views on this have changed over time. I definitely was probably on the snobbier DJ side of things for a while, where I was I am the king of the music and arbiter of all things that are good in what I'm going to play tonight, and will not take any requests. No requests. I'm pretty sure I have hats and T-shirts that say no requests on them. And that's because there are a lot of terrible requests. Like, people will come up and ask for the chicken dance. I've had drunk uncles repeatedly ask for the chicken dance.
See,
literally,
Jason, it's not just me.
I know. It's the drunk uncles, too. Like 5 times this guy came up. Like, I almost... I can't get into it. But I've come around to the fact that we are playing for oftentimes a smaller group of people that can have a very particular view and experience together. And if we are not open to at least hearing what they might want, then we are not able to give our best, essentially. So surprisingly, I don't actually get a ton of requests. And I think that's because of the party that I provide. It's a good time. I don't really give people too much opportunity to feel like they need to ask for requests, so I'm not usually overly inundated with them. But, people will still come up, and they'll say, hey, this is the bride's favorite song. Okay, well, first, why wasn't it on her must playlist then? I'm not sure it really is her favorite song, but maybe she would like it, sure. Does it fit in the context of what she's presented to me herself as the bride? Does it fit in with what is playing at the moment? Or is it going to completely change the vibe that's happening? If it's going to completely change the vibe, then it's not going to get played, like, hands down. I'm still going to use my best judgment always with a request. But if it seems like it's going to fit, I've been surprised, like really crazily surprised when playing some requests at how well they are received. And you're just like, whoa, how do these people, like songs I don't even know that I played, I'm like, how do these people know this song? And literally everybody in the room is screaming it.
And the other thing is, too, is like a lot of times, like some of these friends went to college together or high school together. And so maybe they're requesting something that maybe the couple didn't think about that like, oh, we used to dance to this in college or high school. And so like, because I see that all the time, particularly more so actually with men than women. You find that the DJ plays a certain song and all of a sudden I see the group of guys, which I know just by being their photographer, that's like, oh, that's the fraternity boys, or like that's the high school crew, and all of a sudden they're dancing. I'm like, all right, well, there's some significance going on here, But yeah, so like I can understand, taking the requests for that.
Just as a quick story of an example of that, I DJ'd a wedding last year where the groom was French, like from France. So half the wedding had flown over from France, and probably half an hour before the end of the night, the sister of the groom comes up and asks me if I can play a song I'd never heard of, French song. So I was like, I don't know, let me see if I can find it. I'll look into it. It's kind of one of those like blow off responses you give as a DJ. She comes back like 5 minutes later, asks if I'd found it. I was like, no, not yet, but let me look. So now I actually go look for it, right? Because if she's coming up more than once, maybe it's a little more important. I should give it a little more significance. So I do look for it, download it, and because one thing people might not know is DJs are not streaming their music like normal people would. We really have to download the actual like music file to our computer to play it. So I listen to it, and it's like this dirge, like just very like almost like a sea shanty kind of like very slow, chanty, weird. And I'm like, there is no way that I'm playing this. Like this, absolutely not. Like, this does not fit the vibe at all. She comes up again. I was like, listen, I don't really think this is going to fit. If you get the groom to give me the thumbs up to play this song and he gives the okay, I'm happy to play it. And that's kind of like the last resort as a DJ is if someone is really incessant about you playing this song, but you think it's not going to work, get the bride and groom's input in the moment is not a bad idea. He gives me the okay. I'm like, all right, here we go. Hit play. Instantly, everybody gets down in a row, sitting on the floor in the middle of the dance floor. Everybody sits in a row on the dance floor, and from the back of this row, the bride starts. They all lift her up above their heads and send her down this row of people, one at a time. Everybody kind of takes their turn in this like centipede style like thing on the dance floor, and I was like, what? I've never seen this in so many years of DJing. What is happening? It was amazing.
I love it. See that? And all because of one guest.
Yeah.
And then I bet you that story they talk about that. She's like, you remember when I got lifted up?
Right.
It's obviously some type of tradition overseas or something.
I would have no idea, but she knew and educated me.
Okay, quick question though. You said, you're like, all right, sometimes I just take the request with a grain of salt because you have to. Like, you have to answer to your client, right?
Yeah.
But there has to be a difference with understanding the difference between listening to music and dancing to music, though, that you understand. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of couples and just people in general don't intuit off the bat, and I think a lot of couples kind of see that as they're filling out my form about what their music preferences are, especially for like dancing. They kind of start to think about this thing specifically, which is, you know, music that you listen to in your car and you really enjoy and you might play on repeat all week doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's great to sing to or listen to, it's going to be great to dance to. There's a certain bounce and energy that dance music has, and there's a certain reason why the top 200 wedding songs are always the top 200 wedding songs, because they're also familiar. Familiarity is a huge part of songs helping people feel like they want to dance. There are also songs that you can dance to, but if you don't know them, they wouldn't incentivize you to dance. So knowing what songs are really actually going to incentivize people to dance is a huge part of what DJs bring to the table.
Well, I could obviously sit here all day, but you know we have to wrap up at some point. So before the wrap up question, I don't think we really talked a little bit about the ceremony component. We really focused more on the reception component. Is there any tips or tricks or anything you want to kind of talk about when it has to do with ceremony?
Sure. Well, I mean, DJs oftentimes do play a big role in the ceremony as well. You know, we're providing microphones and a lot of times background music, but sometimes we're just kind of helping amplify live music as well. We work with a lot of live string groups and things like that. But it's really the microphone component for ceremonies that I think is really important. And talking to your DJ ahead of time about what their microphone setup is going to be. Is there going to be a big black microphone stand in the middle of your pictures? Or is it going to be little clip-on microphones that are nearly invisible that are going to still sound great? You know, I think that's visually, I know we're all, you know, creative and visual people. We've talked about a lot of visual aspects of what we do and provide. I think that the microphone stand is kind of in the ceremony aspect, what you want to avoid as much as possible. Not always possible in certain situations if it's like too windy to have a clip-on lapel microphone. Those little tiny microphones don't love heavy wind directly blowing on them. You know, us here in New England, we're often near beaches and in the shore and things like that, and it's extra windy in those places sometimes. So talking to your DJ about what their microphone setup is going to be for your ceremony is really important.
That's so funny you say that, because as you said that, I started thinking about certain venues that I always see the stands at, and now I know why. Because it's right on the water, and it's windy, and there's one particular venue that going back in my memory of pictures, there's always that microphone stand that I have to edit out. And I'm like,
which is so frustrating, right?
It is. But, you know, I mean, I obviously can't edit it out when the couple's up there. But, like, for the wide shot that I always get at the ceremony location, and I'll try to get the microphone out of there. But now I understand why it's there. Yeah,
the handheld wireless mic, because it has a big windscreen on the front, definitely is less harmed by the wind noise. I have some pretty hefty windscreens on my lapel clip-on mics that do a really good job, and I've had a lot more success in recent years than I used to with those upgrades. Also, more professional mics has definitely helped my personal setup. Sometimes in the windy situations, depending on the direction the wind is blowing, if the wind is coming from your back, your body can kind of block the wind and still be able to get away with the lapel microphone. But those are all things that should be, you know, discussed with the DJ, and kind of understanding what the limitations are of the equipment, and knowing that, you know, microphones they haven't changed. They're always going to be microphones, and there's not too much more magic you can put in there than you know, just good microphone placement and avoiding the wind.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, for our wrap-up question, what are some key points that couples should be asking their DJ when they're inquiring to make sure that they're working with a professional company to ensure that their wedding day is an absolute perfect event?
I think probably the thing I hear from my couples the most is the reviews. That's a big part. And having, you know, reviews on multiple sites, whether it be The Knot and Wedding Wire, or whether it be Google or Facebook or wherever you can get reviews. I know a lot of my couples really appreciate that we have a lot of reviews and a lot of current reviews as well. It's talked about over and over again. That's a big part. You know, making sure that they're active on social media and things like that can be important. I know I've seen some people on some Facebook forums reaching out. My DJ hasn't been active on social media for like the whole year. Are they doing anything? I haven't heard from them. I'm trying to get in touch with them. Are they actually out there?
Proof of life. Proof of life,
exactly.
people.
A good website, all those things. But kind of like what we talked about earlier as well is trying to get some sense of what they perform like live from live mixes and things like that. Obviously, it's always the best reference is someone who's seen this person perform before. So if your DJ is on your venue's preferred vendor list, that's always a good sign. If there's someone, a friend or anybody you've heard who's recommending somebody, that's probably a good sign as well. We definitely get a lot of our business from those types of referrals. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to their stress-free wedding planning. Can you tell everybody where they could find you?
Sure. Everywhere on socials at Dawson Entertainment. That's everywhere. Instagram, DawsonEntertainment.com. Those are definitely the main places. So check it out.
And also, too, for our listeners, we will have Jason's information on our episode show notes, which you can find on our blog and our website podcast page, which is sarahzarella.com/podcast. Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.
And thanks, Nikki, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk to you next week. 2 weeks from now.
All right. Can't wait.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.